Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the Criterion Collection review series, where I'm going through my personal Criterion collection and reviewing every movie that I own, either rewatching them or watching some for the first time and just giving my thoughts and opinions on these movies. And today's video is going to be a little different, since this is one of our first larger box sets. I've decided I'm going to break this up into 3 different videos, but each video will sort of reference each other and sort of be a continuation of the last, since it's very difficult, oddly enough with these films, it's very difficult to talk about one without getting into the others and how they're connected in all these weird ways, but I will do my best. And the reason this is so exciting is because we're going to be talking about, hopefully I'm going to say his name right, Krzysztof Kieślowski. We're going to be talking about his seminal cinematic trilogy, the 3 Colors trilogy, blue, white, and red, which this is number 587 in the collection. Now, with this trilogy, I personally didn't know a lot about it before I owned it. I never heard of Kieślowski and his other films, but I was very intrigued by it. The cover really fascinated me. I mean, just these amount of colors is so interesting. The back description of it really interested me, and overall it just seemed like something I'd really be into. And so eventually I did buy it and was really enamored with these films. And this is the first time I've watched them probably since 2016, honestly. And it's really interesting for me because I remember the emotions I felt watching these movies, but I never remembered a lot of specific details. So I remember really enjoying Blue, one that really stuck with me. I remember not really liking White that much. And I remember Red being my favorite, but I literally cannot tell you anything that Red was about. I just do not remember what it was about at all. But to give a little bit of context, so these films sort of came into existence in the late 90s when Kieślowski, who was a Polish director who is now making films in France after the fall of the Polish government when the communist regime fell. He sort of fled there, went to France, made The Double Life of Veronique, something like that, which I haven't seen, but I've heard it's an incredible film. Was a big international success, and so he kind of had room to do whatever he wanted. He could get the financing, he could kind of do whatever he felt like he was ready to do. And so he and one of his sort of established and common writing partners, they decided they were going to make a trilogy of films about what the 3 colors in the French flag represented. Now, if you don't know, like I didn't at one point, the 3 colors of the French flag, blue, white, and red, represent, in this order, blue represents freedom, white represents equality, and red represents fraternity. And they sort of saw this as a response or even a sort of commentary on the current situation in Europe, where with the fall of the Berlin Wall, with a lot of Scandinavian countries and just many general European countries were trying to recover from the communist regimes, Europe was trying to really unite everybody. This was the height or the beginning of the EU, the European Union, trying to get everybody to join them. And they sort of saw this as a way to explore that in the film, to explore how humanity can come together, especially in this one big continent. And what's really fascinating about these films is that they are a trilogy, but they are not connected in any way by characters or by plot. Characters from each film do show up in all of the other films, like for example the main character of Blue shows up briefly at the beginning of White. They are films that in a weird way play with each other. They are films that when you think about them in the context of each other and how they followed each other in their specific order and how they relate to each other, create a very interesting viewing experience. Especially since each film is so different despite being directed and written by the same person. They each had a different cinematographer, different scores, I believe, different actors, different plot lines, different genres, and it's just fascinating to watch them back to back and sort of get a feel for how they all work. So the way I'm going to do these videos is, like I said, reviewing them individually, and then while I'm reviewing the 3rd film, Red, also get into their connections, talk more about the production of the film, and get more in depth if I can. But, without further ado, I've been rambling a lot here. We're going to get started by looking at Blue, starring Juliette Binoche. Now, Blue is a really fascinating film because It is a film that does reflect its color, right? Blue is often considered a sad, morose, depressing color. It can represent that, especially, the color of tears, things like that. And while it is a film that begins as a tragedy, it's a film that begins very sad, it ultimately leads to not an expressly hopeful ending, but the character arc is one of regaining faith in humanity and faith in themselves in a way. The film itself, Blue is supposed to represent freedom, and yet it is almost an anti-freedom movie in the way that it is almost an anti-tragedy. And we'll sort of get into the plot. The film stars Juliette Binoche as this luxurious woman who is married to a famous composer. They're very rich, have a castle as a house almost. And the film begins with them being involved in a horrible car accident where Juliette Binoche is the only survivor, and her daughter and husband have died. And so her response to this accident, her sort of grieving process, is to just sort of try to escape it all, to get rid of this life and try to forget it. She doesn't want the house. She tries to sell it. She just throws away and gets rid of every piece of her life, of her husband, of her daughter, of any material possessions, and just decides to start anew. But she also gives up the responsibility of finishing her husband's final composition, which I believe was a commission from the European Union to be a song that would unite Europe. But she decides to just throw it all away. I don't want to be involved. Don't even finish it. Don't even do it. And decides to just go into Paris, buy her own little apartment, and just try to live, try to start a new life and forget these memories of her past. But when you know it, the past doesn't really go away. It can't really escape. And this sort of idea is really beautifully and strikingly conveyed through a series of sequences where Juliette Binoche will be on her own, and the composition that her husband will work on, or that her husband was working on, will begin to just strike and play loudly in the background as the camera almost like waves around her. These blue lights are striking, or even the film in another response will go to black. We'll almost be stuck in that moment as she's reliving this song and these things. And these always strike without warning. They always come back in the way that a distant memory will, or an emotional or traumatic event will come back to somebody. So right off the bat, I have to say that Juliette Binoche gives an incredibly understated yet powerful and impactful performance. Her understated acting choices really mix and help Kieslowski's normally subtle filmmaking, where he's focused a lot on individual details, almost poetic cinema, right, of focusing a lot on individual images, on ideas, on colors. And so there are a lot of times where we just have Binoche alone in a room reacting to something, or even not even reacting, just hanging out, just sitting, just looking at something. And just through her body language, her expressions, just her little movements here and there, she expresses so much and really gives the viewer a lot to chew on in terms of trying to figure out where she is emotionally, how she must feel in her head, where she's going, and how she's processing everything, how difficult that can be. And really, really holds the film together. I think without her performance, the movie would look nice, but maybe not be as powerful. She, in the way she is shot and the way she's presented in the film, she seems to be a very fragile, not dainty, but, a very, I'll just say fragile person. She seems very, waffy, or I don't even know what the right term would be, but she's able to express so much strength, and yet also express some sort of even deeper weakness, just in her eye movements, just in her facial expressions, and it really is emotionally powerful throughout the film. The film is an hour and a half, but it has a very methodical and slow pace. It's a film that isn't afraid to take its time, to really focus in on specific details, to just sit in a room and just sort of let these ideas simmer, let you analyze things, really get in depth on with everything going on. And therefore it makes the film engaging throughout its runtime. Makes it feel longer than it actually is, not necessarily in the sense that you want it to be over, but in the sense that you are sticking with it for so long. Your brain is concentrating so much on what's happening to sort of parse it together, to figure out what Kieslowski is doing and how Juliette Binoche is reacting to things and so on and so forth, that it becomes a very almost eternal feeling. I don't know, it's hard to describe, but it's just a very entrancing experience. There you go, you do sort of get into a trance watching it. And I think that really helps in sort of, it helps the viewer explore the themes of the film, which, as I said earlier, the film is about freedom, but it is almost about how damaging and detrimental true freedom can be. Kieslowski seems to view freedom not as, giving up everything to have no responsibilities, but freedom is almost like existing within a void, where you are not only free from things that hurt you, but you're free from things that give you joy, that give meaning to your life. Juliette Binoche at points is almost like a husk. She closes herself off so much that she's missing other parts of her life that are important. And her sort of character growth, her character arc is to realize that, is to understand that this creative expression she had, which it's implied she was one of the people heavily involved in writing her husband's compositions, she's ignoring that, she's missing that. She has nothing to fulfill her life other than going to a cafe every day and, drinking coffee. There's nothing else really going on for her. And the sooner she can maybe not recover, not get over her grief, but the sooner she can come to terms with it and begin to heal, the better she will be, I believe. In a sense, freedom in Blue is equivalent to being emotionally stunted and physically invisible. Freedom to Kieslowski seems to be inaction. Rather than taking a stance, rather than doing something, you are instead cutting yourself off. You're getting off the grid. You are isolating yourself. That to him is true freedom. And there is nothing there. It is a void. There is nothing happening there, and it is empty and sad. And for Juliette Binoche's character, who's someone that has a strong conscience, who does have a lot of sympathy and empathy, as expressed through a sequence where a litter of rats are born in her apartment, and she can't bear to kill them. She can't bear to see them and to consider killing them. These emotions keep coming back to her. These feelings keep haunting her in a sense, and she can never really escape it. And so, if Kieslowski, believes freedom is a void, then that would say entrapment, being obligated to do something, being trapped in a sense, is life to Kieslowski. This, I believe, is expressed by the final sequence, which is sort of a beautiful montage set to the finished composition, where it shows all of the characters to the film, so all of the characters that have affected Binoche's life at this point, including Binoche herself, showing them in various forms of traps, in various situations where they cannot escape. So, for example, we see Binoche's mother, who's dealing with Alzheimer's, who is trapped within her mind and trapped by her age, where she is doomed to sort of never remember anything, doomed to forever be watching a TV of other people doing exciting, fun things. But then we also see the young boy that was there when the crash happened, that did actually bring back, I believe it was a necklace or some sort of item that her daughter had, brings it back to Binoche. We see him trapped in adolescence. He's stuck in his childhood room. And these two characters are sort of counterbalanced, where Binoche's mother she's at the end of her life. She's lived everything she can, and due to her condition can't really do anything, right? She can't have any freedom because she is trapped within herself. And yet the boy, the teenager, has his whole life ahead of him. He is trapped by age. He's trapped by time. He can't escape having to grow up and having to learn all these experiences and go through all of that, right? So in that way, I believe that Blue is saying that in order to live a full life, in order to be happy, we do have to have some restriction. We do have to have some social obligation. We do have to have, there are things that keep us from fully going off the grid. There are things that keep us from truly being free. time, conscience, family, your own health, these things that just, these abstract ideas almost that tie us down. But without these restrictions, there's nothing that encourages us or shows us what is great in life. Without time, we are unable to process how we've changed and how we can do better and how we can remember things and do better by them. Without our families, we can never appreciate the other people in our lives. Without our past, we can't appreciate where we're going, in a sense. And so I feel ultimately the message of the film is, without some restrictions, without some pain, we wouldn't be able to appreciate the best parts of life. And while I won't say the ending of the film is overly positive in the way that I'm trying to spin it, I think it is ultimately a positive message, but a bittersweet one. One that acknowledges there is still some pain in life, but there's so much more to life that's not worth giving up on. It's not worth escaping, because there is so much more. There are so many possibilities for most of us. But I will say this is my interpretation. I think Kieslowski and everyone involved does a great job of not coming to a grand, sweeping, generalized conclusion. But because the film doesn't have a, very specific ending or a very easy explanation, that makes the special features on this release here really, really fantastic. There are a lot of interviews, a lot of discussions, sort of talking to the actors about their experience making the film, Kieslowski talking about his experience making the film, what his intentions were. There's a really great, just straight up video essay on the film that explores the themes of the film, the imagery, how it all plays together. That really helped me, especially the first time I saw it, to process it, figure out what it's saying, what it's working towards, and gave me a really great perspective on it. And I mean, it's just a jam-packed release that is so fascinating. And a really great thing about this box set is that every movie comes with some of Kieslowski's early short films and documentaries when he was still in Poland. Like many other Criterions, it's giving you a larger context for the director and for their work to let you understand where they're coming from and what led them to this point. Of course, juxtaposing the beginning of his career with the end of his career, which just makes for a truly fascinating release. And then the booklet included, if I lost it, but then the booklet included has a really great essay written by Nick James that examines the film not only in the context of Kieslowski's career, but in general of what the film is saying. He comes up with this interesting take that I don't know if I fully agree with, about how the film is maybe even anti-feminist, which is interesting and weird and, maybe not the best take, but it's still interesting to read and see a new perspective on the film. But yeah, I think Blue is a beautiful, fantastic, incredible film that is honestly worth getting the box set just for that and for the other special features, which even if you don't like the other movies in the trilogy, you can at least watch the special features and appreciate Kieslowski as a director. But that's it for Blue. Next time we'll be talking about Three Colors White, so be sure to subscribe so you can see when that video will be uploaded. But if you like this video, please like it. If you want more people to see it, please share it. And well, either way, thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.